I joke about Christopher Nolan. It's a running gag that I'm, this kind of this troubled intellectual who has no time for Christopher Nolan because I'm busy watching French New Wave films. And that is true. I am doing that. But hello there! It's Friday, which means it's time once again for the best movie podcast ever. The only movie podcast to offer objective and hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, Konrad, and with me as always, he didn't come here to dream. He came here to be woken up. It's Anthony James.
You're waiting for a train. Yes, it is me. Hello.
If you... There's going to be one person out there who already knows what film we're going to talk about based on those lines that we've just spoken there. If that person is you, I pity you. No, I'm only joking. Like, it's we'll get into it, all right? We've got a lot to discuss.
Yeah, I just want to say up front, beware the Konrad agenda. All right, let's just leave it at that. I'm not going to go into detail on the Konrad agenda.
Listen, I've laid out my stall very clearly on the filmmaker in question. But before we get into that, Anthony, how the devil are you? Let's give him a little bit of back and forth before we race
I'm doing very well. Just had my 5th wedding anniversary, so that went very well. We celebrated it by getting a pizza. And it was absolutely hilarious. Actually, I went into the pizza shop, and on the wall they had the size guide, and I was like, the large that looks quite small. It looks like 10 inches, whereas the extra large looked like about 12 to 13, 14 inches, something like that. I was like, yeah, that's probably a good one. So I said, right, we'll take one of those. And then when I got home, when they gave it to me, the extra large, I'm not even joking yet. This thing was like 2 feet wide. I was like, what the fuck? Like, was I standing too far away from the size guide or something?
Yeah, that's what it was. You've made the mistake of ordering a pizza from outside the store again.
Yeah.
I've actually learned something of that conversation as well, because I didn't realise that one of the anniversaries was pizza as a material. That's very exciting.
Actually, the anniversary this time is wood.
Wood. Oh, okay.
And I had a brilliant idea last summer. Whenever I found out it was wood for the 5th anniversary, and I was like, oh my god, Emma plays the guitar. Well, we both play the guitar, but Emma's like sort of always been trying to learn the guitar, but she's never owned her own. So I was like, I could get her a guitar for the wood anniversary.
That's a very good idea.
Yeah, but her birthday is in September, and because I had the idea in August, I couldn't wait, so I just bought it last year. So that was her wood anniversary and birthday present from last year.
Lovely. That's what a lovely way to cement a relationship. Well, I say cement. It was pretty cemented already, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, you've been married for 5 years.
It's locked in now.
Much like Anthony's relationship with his wife, we're going to cement your relationship, dear listener, with us, the best movie podcast ever, and we're going to do that through the medium of through a few mediums. We're going to talk about Medii, sure. We're going to talk about Disney suing its own star, or not suing, but dressing down its own stars in legal battles, and whether that's a good idea and look for Disney or not. Spoilers, it isn't. David Ayer continues to take issue with the original Suicide Squad, which is interesting, to say the least. We've got a Back to the Future that's very close to my heart, and I'm saying no more about it than that. And we are heading into the infinite subconscious with, yes, that's right, you guessed it, it's Christopher Nolan's Inception this week. Anthony, are you ready to talk about some gosh darn movies?
I think I am. Let's do it.
Movies. We have to start with Disney because, wouldn't you know it, the billion-dollar company continues to be a bunch of shits. Scarlett Johansson. I don't know how much you've actually seen of this week, Anthony.
I know the news, and I'll find out how well informed I am through you, I suppose.
Okay, so basically, the story began with, I can't actually remember where it dropped, but reports came out on Thursday the 29th, so just before the previous episode of this dear podcast aired, that Scarlett Johansson was suing Disney for around 50 million in lost box office earnings because Disney essentially moved the marketing push for Black Widow away from cinemas and towards Disney+.
Yep.
which, as a starting point, I think that's fair enough. You know, that's a pretty significant chunk of change.
Well, the fact that Scarlett Johansson was suing them.
Well, and you know,
100%.
for 50 million, you know, I mean, to be honest, any amount of money, I'd be like, yeah, fair enough. You know, like you were made promises about the marketing of the movie that were not kept, and you know, it's $50 million. That's quite a lot of money by any stretch of the imagination.
100%. I'm 100% behind it. I will just say as well, it did inform my decision to go and see Black Widow on the weekend. I did go and see it in the cinema. Support Scarlett Johansson. I will just say that. Honestly, and people are talking about that this might be a watershed moment for actors and actresses to get paid through streaming services better. I will say I'm hesitant to believe that, and I will say this because Scarlett Johansson was executive producer. So therefore, her pay is tied into that credit as well. So therefore, it might be hard to equate this to just a normal, smaller actress or actor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she has a lot of pull.
Yeah.
A lot of sway around those parts. But I mean, still, a significant moment. And then Disney decided to really lean into being the heels in this situation by issuing. I'll just read their statement verbatim, and then we can go into just how much bullshit it actually is. There is no merit whatsoever to this filing. The lawsuit is especially sad and distressing in its callous disregard for the horrific and prolonged global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Disney has fully complied with Ms. Johansson's contract, and furthermore, the release of Black Widow on Disney Plus with Premier Access has significantly enhanced her ability to earn additional compensation on top of the $20 million she has received to date. So, few things. First off, fuck off Disney for invoking the COVID-19 pandemic as if somehow you're hard up. Like, please think of us, sir. We've barely got a cap to put in our head. Like, it's like, piss off. You're not a Victorian orphan. You're a $1 billion company.
But also, what the fucking goal of them to name that she's got 20 million so far? The only reason they do that is because they know half the people who hear that are going to go, well, what the fuck does she want more money for? That's whenever
they're weaponizing her success to be like, you've made loads of money already off of this, as if they haven't.
Yeah. Same thing happened to Jennifer Lawrence. Like, when Jennifer Lawrence came out and said she wanted equal pay for equal work, then all of a sudden everyone's like, what are you talking about? You made $6 million. Like, okay, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But she's entitled to equal pay if she's doing the same job. Like, this is ridiculous, you know.
And you know, she's entitled to what the contract states that she is entitled to, and Disney, like, trying to hide behind the pandemic and hide behind money they've already paid her is such a bad look. And you know, they're a massive company. Never trust massive companies. They are made up of scumbags, the lot of them. But even in this case, this really took the cake for me. It made me really angry, particularly given that Scarlett Johansson had, according to reports that came out after this, reached out to try and agree a new deal with Disney once it became clear that they were going to push more on Disney Plus than in cinemas, to try and come up with something that was agreeable without the need to sue them. And Disney essentially just said no. So
okay, let me just say, right, I'm really, really baffled when things like this happen. It blows my mind, Konrad, that the world, the zeitgeist of the world's thought is all so biased towards being on the company side. I know I might get a couple of hate comments, but I probably won't because our listeners are great. But when I say this, the comparison is there to the Me Too movement as well. This is literally a victim blaming scenario. People are blaming the victim of this situation because she is standing up for herself and saying, "You didn't honor my contract." You know what I mean?
Yeah, like in literally no circumstance should you be siding with a corporation. They don't care about you. They don't have your best interests at heart. They don't have feelings, and they are, particularly the publicly traded ones, are driven by a need to increase their value to their stakeholders and their shareholders. That's all they care about. Corporations, like particularly of this size, can get fucked as far as I'm concerned.
I really don't get it. Like, the fact of the matter is as well, Konrad, personally in my own personal life, I know a few people. I'm not going to go into who they are in relation to me, but I know.
Name them.
Now, I know a few people who work for small businesses, and let me be honest with you. Small businesses are like the drive of a country. I absolutely love them. Yeah. Having said that, this shows the mentality of some owners of businesses at even a small level. A few people that I know in my life have been severely mistreated by their bosses, and they work in businesses with only 5 people. For example, one person I know is going to go on maternity leave, and that's going to take all the way to the end of the financial year. So therefore, the only way that she is going to get her holidays is if she takes them now. Her boss has said to her, not allowed to take your holidays because we've only been in the financial year for a couple of months. That's completely against the law. That she's went to citizen advice, but the fact of the matter is, she thinks that her employees have no idea what the law is, and she's just taken advantage of it. Now, my question to you is this, Konrad. If small business owners cannot care about their 5 employees that they see every day that much, why the fuck are people on Disney's side when the people who are making the decisions don't even meet the fucking footman? You know?
Well, I mean, I'll give you my cynical answer. It's because their name is at the beginning of the movie when it's like the Avengers or Star Wars or whatever. People are like, oh no, not Disney. They might lose all their money and stop making Star Wars movies. Disney ain't going to lose all their money. Disney are going to outlive all of us. I promise you that much. Like, Mickey Mouse will still be running his salt mines on Mars when Earth is dead. Like, this is not a company we need to worry about.
And to be honest with you, that's actually what's really annoying too, is because everyone loves like Marvel and everyone loves watching Marvel, but this is the fact of the matter. It's never going to end. Like, it's never going to end. You are not going to see the end of this. You will die before they stop making these films. So in that way, I'm actually I don't like them in that way, because I'm like, what am I sinking my teeth into here? What am I actually going along? I'm never going to see the destination. You know.
Well, at some point they'll remake the Avengers. When enough people have forgotten it happened, they'll be like, we're rebooting it. So just to end this this deserved rant on perhaps a slightly more positive note. So this hopefully will be a landmark moment in how studios handle profit sharing in general. Gerard Butler is already suing Millennium for $10 million of profit sharing he believes he's due for the 2013 movie Olympus Has Fallen, which is obviously pre-COVID pandemic, but it's telling that he has been spurred into action by Scarlett Johansson doing this, and Emma Stone is reportedly also considering her options over Cruella getting more or less the same treatment as Black Widow, and so they should. Just because they are, it always puts me in mind of a Steve Coogan interview where he talks about like the super wealthy and how he finds them disgusting, and instead he wants everyone to just be mildly disgustingly wealthy like actors, which I can get behind.
Yeah, exactly. Like
people can have 20 million. That's fine. I'd like that's not too much. But it's when we get into billionaires.
Someone who has 20 million has more in common with me than someone who has 20 billion. Like that is true. I will say as well, just before you go on there, it's not just actors and actresses who this is affecting. The costume designer, and obviously Emo would be plugged into this. The costume designer of Cruella actually was in talks with Disney to create like a fashion line based on the costumes. And this has thrown up huge discussions because the costume designer was ghosted by Disney then, and then they just released the fashion line without her knowing, and she got no share of it. Now, this is the thing. If you're a musician and you create music, every time that music is played in an advert or a TV show, you get royalties. Every single time. Costume designers, there exists no such thing. Disney get costume designers to design these princesses' dresses and design these characters' clothes, and then they sell them to children all around the world. The costume designer sees nothing.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. And I'm sure, costume designers aren't the only people working on these movies in, kind of crafts positions that are being hard done by these decisions that are made by people who have nothing but making lots of money in their heads. And if that's all that you're thinking about, you're probably a scumbag, and I have no time for you. Now, speaking of studios who make superhero movies shitty, David Ayer continues to rage against the Suicide Squad that was released, the movie he directed in, I'm going to say 2016. Obviously, it's because the current James Gunn Suicide Squad is releasing, and to his credit, David Ayer is full of praise for James Gunn for his Suicide Squad, which apparently is quite good, and Kathy Yan for Birds of Prey, which also did quite well. And it doesn't seem like he's specifically angling for like a Zack Snyder cut-esque opportunity to kind of release his own movie, but he's very tellingly said that watching the studio release a movie which he believes bore no resemblance to the one he made felt like having his heart torn out, according to him. And it's interesting to have yet another director coming out against Warner Brothers to criticize their meddling It's just, another studio that I don't even particularly care about superhero movies as a genre, to be honest. But it just seems like a big budget. Maybe they've always been this way. Maybe I'm just nostalgic for a time that didn't actually exist. But I feel like big budget blockbusters in the last 25 years, or perhaps 15 years, actually, thinking about it, they just always seem to come with some studio overstepping their bounds or doing something to annoy the creative talent at the heart of it.
To be honest with you, this is, again, we always go to wrestling. This is going to alienate some of the fans. But the fact of the matter is, it's like Vince McMahon taking control and saying, I know what the fans want, even though it's not what they want, and just saying, here's John Cena for 10 years. Like, it's...
Yeah.
Ironically, John Cena is
in here's Roman Reigns as a babyface for 5, and then
exactly
only turning him heel.
And actual credible reports of him saying backstage, like, the fans don't even know what they want. Like, this is what these producers of these companies think. They think they have this power that they can just shovel us shit and we won't notice. Like, I have no idea how Suicide Squad, the original one, did financially, but I'm pretty sure they would have rather not done what they did to it if they knew, because listen, they got so much negative press from that. Let's be honest with you. It is a steaming pile of shit. What's his name? David Ayer. Let me say this to you. I'm on his side here, obviously, but I will say, if he had anything to do with Jared Leto's Joker in any way, I cannot vouch for this man.
I think that's the important distinction to make here. Is like, we can support his rights as an artist to create his vision. Doesn't mean his vision would have been good, but it does mean, it should. Listen, if you're gonna make a bad movie anyway, you might as well make a bad movie that's consistent with the artist creating its vision, because what they made instead was this bastardized Frankenstein's monster of a movie where the tone was all over the place. And I don't care what Emmett says about this movie, all right? Like, for those of you who know which episode of BMPE we're referencing there, it's a bad movie, and it shouldn't have been made the way it was. It couldn't have been worse if they'd have just let David Ayer do
Listen to me. David Ayer, okay, I'm still on his side, but I gotta say this as well. He presided over a film that during the shooting of, Jared Leto was sending envelopes full of semen to Margot Robbie's house.
Is that true?
That is true. He sent...
Holy shit.
Yes.
How is he not in prison?
He was method acting Konrad. And I if I was that director, I'm going to be honest with you. If I was that director, I would be doing everything I could to get that man out of that film. I honestly would.
Yeah. I mean, there's method acting, and then there's just using your profession as an excuse to be a weirdo. Jared Leto sucks. He's bad in everything. Don't put Jared Leto in movies anymore. I didn't know that, and that has... I didn't think my opinion of Jared Leto could sink any lower.
Allegedly.
Okay, well, I'll say maybe that's not true, but the fact that I have zero problem believing or envisaging that happening says a lot about Jared
Well, the
Leto
listeners will know if it's true or not by the time this goes out, because if it's not, I put a flashing thing saying this is false. Because last time with Mel Gibson's fight, I thought that was true. It wasn't true. I put it on the thing saying this is a lie. I'm an idiot.
Yeah, but also, Mel Gibson. Come on. He's earned a few tall tales about him, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But yeah, so let artists make their movies, which is about as good a segue as I think I'm going to get into a slightly more upbeat segment of the show. We've had our rants. Mm-hmm. We've talked about how movie studios are shitty. Now we're going to talk. Now we're going to take a dive into the history of movies. The sepia-toned days of yesteryear, where we can leaf through our school books. I'm trying to think of other 90s references here. I'm
looking for clues, because I thought you might be dropping them accidentally here.
Oh no, I'm giving you nothing. This is all carefully sepia. Yeah. That would be a little bit longer ago than 25 years ago. It is, of course, your favorite and mine. It is the game show segment that has got the world's gums aflap. It is Back to the Feature! I'm assuming there's music there. You could pull a horrible trick on me and just not put music in at some point, and I'll
listen. You don't notice because you're dancing too. I'm dancing every time, mate. So I'm not going to make myself look bad. I was doing the Macarena that time.
Oh, great! That's hard to do sat down. That's an impressive feat. Welcome to Back to the Feature. For those of you who haven't listened before, this is the exciting game show segment where I have selected a feature film from 25 years ago, as close to today's date as possible. Anthony will hear 5 clues and have 5 opportunities to guess the film. Each clue he hears will lower the amount of points he scores. And please play along at home. Anthony, are you ready for Back to the Feature?
I'm ready.
You're on a... So, 2 weeks ago, you got a 5-pointer.
Jeez, all skill.
Last week, you got a 4-pointer.
Yeah, just a little bit less.
I mean, you know, you played the hand you were dealt. I'm bitter about it. I'm not going to lie about that. But I set the ball up for you, and you spiked it.
A friend of mine in real life told me he got it on the first clue. So I have to try and beat him this time.
Okay, This isn't really a clue. I will be quite impressed if you've seen this movie, purely because I don't really think it's your cup of tea. But we'll see. We'll see. Clue the first. Mm-hmm. This high-budget sequel to a popular 80s dystopian thriller made only half of its cost back at the box office.
Dystopian thriller?
Yeah, I will say I've called it a thriller, but it kind of sits between genres a little bit, in my opinion. You could make the argument it's an action movie.
Okay. Dystopian sequel. Have I seen this film, you think?
The sequel or the original?
Yeah, either.
You might have seen the original. I don't think you've seen this.
Okay.
I'd be surprised if you've seen it.
Right, so that rules Bill and Ted 2 out. Let me see.
Dystopian thriller.
You dance with the Reaper. Okay. Okay. I'm going to be honest with you, as usual with the first clue, I'm not really anywhere. Sequel, let's go for... I have no idea. Okay. I was just gonna say Angels in the Outfield.
That famous... Is that a sequel? I don't think it is. It is not Angels in the Outfield. A film I've never seen. Is that about baseball?
Yeah, Kevin Costner.
I'm assuming it is.
Yeah, baseball.
Wait, hold on. He made Field of Dreams and Angels in the Outfield.
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Oh no, maybe Field of Dreams is No, isn't Angels in the Outfield about like ghosts who play baseball?
Yeah, but I think Field of Dreams has ghosts in it as well, like the ghost of his dad. I've not seen either, to be honest.
Neither have I.
I thought
I've seen Angels in the Outfield.
Well, someone tell us in the comments, did Kevin Costner make 2 kind of friendly ghost-based...
Maybe I'm amalgamating them. Maybe Field of Dreams is the one that I'm thinking of, but I'm saying Angels in the Outfield, you know.
Okay. I mean, you could tell me those are the same.
Or is Angels in the Outfield the Tom Hanks one with the women playing baseball? I don't know.
I've literally not seen either of these movies. So
the Tom Hanks one where it's the women playing baseball is actually a very good film. I can't remember what it's called. Maybe it's Angels in the Outfield.
Well, it's not this. I'll tell you that much for nothing. Clue the second. Bruce Campbell has a brief cameo in this movie as the grotesque Surgeon General of Beverly Hills.
The grotesque Surgeon General of Beverly Hills. I don't know who Bruce Campbell is.
Oh, that's a shocker from you, Anthony, to not know who Bruce Campbell is.
I'm sorry, I don't know who he is. So
it's his movies again. I think his movies aren't really your bag. Whereas he's very much in my wheelhouse.
Baby. Okay, let me think. Bruce Campbell, Surgeon General. So there's a surgeon in this.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you who Bruce Campbell is because you will know. He's the guy who announces Spider-Man at the wrestling match with Macho Man Randy Savage in the first Spider-Man movie.
Right, okay. I don't know too many of films that guy's in. You're right. So I don't actually know if that's going to help me too much. It's a sequel. It is a thriller. Well, it's thriller action. Again, no, I'm sort of lost on this one. Let's go for...
Okay.
I don't know. Let's go for Paranormal Activity 2.
1996.
Listen. Listeners know from now, when I have a random guess, it doesn't matter what the year is. I'm just throwing a name out there.
That's half the fun. That's half the fun is hearing when you don't know, you just try to throw something out that sounds like it could maybe even be slightly right. It's not Paranormal Activity 2. The last good Paranormal Activity movie. Clue the third. This is Kurt Russell's only writing credit on a movie.
Okay, I think I'm in the ballpark now. I think I'll probably recognize the name of the first film, but I can't quite remember. If I remember correctly, it's got a bit of a wackiness to it. I don't know the film. I'm pretty sure Big Trouble in Little something. I'm close. I think I'm close.
I'll fill in the title for you because it's not Big Trouble in Little China, but it's a lovely guess.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies, Big Trouble in Little China. I watched it very recently. You've got. Well, I'll read you the fourth clue and then I'll return to that.
Okay.
Fourth clue. This is the only sequel that John Carpenter ever directed. So you've done a lovely reach there, Big Trouble in Little China, because Kurt Russell was the star of it and John Carpenter directed that. So you're definitely in the right ballpark.
Okay, so John Carpenter has put me, definitely in the correct ballpark. I'm thinking the first Thing movie definitely is more thriller, I would say. I haven't actually seen the full film, but I do know that it's not just an action film, so I understand why you're sort of balancing between there if this is a sequel to The Thing. But I haven't seen the first one, actually, the whole way through, and I didn't even know there was a sequel to this, if there is one. I don't know if there is. I'm going to go for The Thing 2. I don't know if that's even the title of it. Let's go for it.
Pop this into the learning algorithm to see, to have it checked against our database. It's not The Thing 2. There isn't actually a sequel to The Thing. The Thing is a kind of spiritual remake of, I think it's called The Thing from Outer Space, which was a 50s movie, and then there was a prequel / soft reboot made in the mid 2010s, I think, about the Norwegians. The Thing is one of those movies that at some point we have to watch because it is amazing. Okay, your final clue. You're definitely in the right. You're knocking on the door.
I don't think I'm going to get it, but let's go.
Okay, so clue 5. It was Kurt Russell who essentially got this movie made after it was caught in development hell for almost 15 years, mainly because Snake Plissken was one of his favourite characters to play.
Okay, now I've got an image of him with one eye.
He's scorching hot. For this.
I'm not gonna get it. 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 I'm gonna go for. See, the thing is, like, because I kind of can picture it in my mind, I find it even hard to pull a random one to guess because I'm just like, but I might get it in the next 2 seconds of thought. But I don't think I'm gonna get it. But I think I am viewing him with an eye patch potentially. I don't know why. Something about this film, I haven't seen it, but something about it is screaming like that Hot Shots film with Charlie Sheen. I don't know why. So let's go for Hot Shots Part 2.
It's not Hot Shots Part 2. When you
John
said
Carpenter.
you pictured him... John Carpenter. That would have been a pull for him. When you said you can picture him with one eye... I thought you were gonna pull it out of the bag. To be honest, Snake Plissken does indeed have one eye. Snake Plissken is, of course, the one-eyed anti-hero star of the original movie, which is a very good film called Escape from New York, about when the president's plane goes down in the prison city of New York. And the sequel, which is not a good movie, but I still kind of love, is Escape from LA.
I'd never even heard of Escape from LA. Escape from New York is one of those ones that is deep in my mind. I would have known the name of it eventually, probably.
You had the image of Snake Plissken in your mind, and you just couldn't summon it forth. You were very close, and you were in the Kurt Russell, John Carpenter ballpark.
That's all right. That's all right.
It's been a strong couple of weeks for you, and I've every confidence that you're going to bounce back from this defeat.
Yep.
But unfortunately, a 0-pointer.
It's about the journey, Konrad. It's about the journey.
It is. It's about the great banter that we have in this game show segment. That's what the people come for. I think last week I compared myself to Steve Harvey, and then I did some research.
I didn't want to say
he's a little bit problematic. So,
didn't want to say.
I'm not going to do that.
Should have said Les Dennis. Les Dennis.
I feel like any game show host is potentially putting myself in hot water. So I'm just going to forge my own trail.
Yeah.
But that was back to the feature. And thank you everyone for playing. We're going to now head into our main feature. I've not said anything to Anthony. I'm gonna let the listeners peek behind the curtain here. When we started this Zoom call that we're recording for the podcast, Anthony made a joke about how he was going to prep all of you with my anti-Christopher Nolan stance, which I think's a little unfair of Anthony. I wouldn't call myself anti-Christopher Nolan. I just have no time for his bullshit.
You have an agenda, is what I'm saying.
I've not said anything to Anthony about how I felt about this movie. We are talking, of course, as we said in the intro, about 2010's Inception.
Yep.
Now, Anthony, I'm going to let you lead off with what you said to me beforehand, just to get your biases out of the way earlier, right? Let me point the mirror at you, all right?
Right. Let's start out by saying Konrad has portrayed himself in the past as a man who likes to view himself as a man who grows up and as he ages, he becomes more mature. We've seen this with the way he riled against 300. He used to think it was a 4-star film with a like. Now it's a 2-star film, no like. He's taken the like away. Yep. And that's not because he grew. That's not because he didn't like the film anymore. That is literally just because he wants to feel like he has progressed. He has grown in his life, okay?
How dare you?
Now that will happen. Now let me just say, up front, and I'm getting the feeling this is all going to end with Konrad saying he likes Inception, but let's just say that this film is Christopher Nolan's magnum opus, not Magnus opus, as I said for Dark, little pun there. Magnum opus. He will be forever trying to recreate this. Tenet, trying to recreate this. Interstellar, trying to recreate this. This is the film which he is going to forever be compared to in terms of everything he does. The way he does the time in this film, the way it is complex but also very emotional and you can carry the through line through the film, the world that he's created, he's not going to top it. In my opinion, this film is great. I turned to Ema 8 or 10 times while watching this and I just said, this is fucking amazing. What do you think, Konrad?
So, okay, let's talk. This is actually my final point on this, but we might as well do it now. Where would you rank it in Nolan's catalogue? Would you put it right at the top?
I find it difficult to do that, I'm going to be honest with you, because the films that he made up until this point, I think, this came out in 2010, so I was 17 when this came out. No, sorry, I was 19 when this came out. So this is properly the end of my formative teenage years, okay?
Yeah.
Obviously, I still did a lot of growing. Not as much as Konrad, because he's moved from 4 to 2-star. But I've done a lot of growing, right, in the time since then. But I will say, Christopher Nolan's films from, Insomnia, The Prestige, the Batman films, Inception, up until The Dark Knight and Inception, they all hold a particular place for me. And I find those early ones really hard to get out. And I say, if I had gone to my head, I'd probably say The Prestige and Inception are my two favorites. I would probably say that. Having said that, even for The Dark Knight Rises, passable film. I was when that came out, I was like 21, 22, and I had moved into the stage of my life where it all just became a big blur, and I don't hold any sort of nostalgia for that film whatsoever. There's no nostalgia for this actually, but I think that the first 4 or 5 of his films, big budget films, I can't really separate. You know what I mean?
Okay, I think that's fair enough. I'm gonna lay this out there. I think this is one of my, like, we've had our fun now. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna say I think this is probably one of my favorite movies of his. I don't think it's on the level for me. Dark Knight and Prestige are his 2 best movies.
I can see that.
I don't think it's on that level, but I'd probably put it on the tier below that with stuff like Batman Begins and Memento.
Still great films.
And other, still very good movies, but just not at that, top tier Nolan. Because, I joke about Christopher Nolan. It's a running gag that I'm, this kind of, this troubled intellectual who has no time for Christopher Nolan because I'm busy watching French New Wave films. And that is true. I am doing that. But Christopher Nolan, it's easy to forget because he's kind of disappeared up his own arse to a certain extent as a writer. He made some really good movies, and I think this is one of them. So, fundamental, for those of you who haven't seen this, we're not going to get into spoilers just yet. and Anthony, you can stop me if you disagree with this, but I think fundamentally this is a heist movie. Yeah. It's you strip away all of the technically dream-related kind of mumbo-jumbo, and it's really just a movie about having to steal, or in this case, plant a thing with a team of specialists and intricate planning.
An idea is a powerful thing. And someone incepted into Christopher Nolan's brain back 25 years ago, make a heist film where they have to put something in there.
But I almost think, like, the putting it in... Well, I think the kind of MacGuffin of planting the idea, although it is actually, that's not true. I was going to say it doesn't really matter because it's the action around it, you know, the thing that they're stealing or they're planting is the stuff that matters. But actually, there is some good character work between Cillian Murphy and Tom Berenger in this that is facilitated by that. So I don't think that's actually. I don't think I'm correct in that.
I honestly feel. Sorry, Corin, just something to add to that point. I honestly feel the moment. I'll just say before we get into spoilers, obviously we're going to do a fair bit of talk before spoilers, but the character moments with Cillian Murphy especially, and the relationship with his father, I think are so well done, and I think that they do such a good job of transitioning from the crazy action into these little heartfelt moments.
Yeah.
That the sort of big crescendo at the end, which we won't go into at the minute, just in case anyone hasn't seen Inception. I'm sure that is no one watching this video who hasn't seen this film, but I really think that they did those emotional moments really well. I really think it's sung. And that's maybe one of the reasons why this is better than a lot of the things he's going to do in the future, because he managed to marry it so well.
Well, yeah, and I think that's definitely true. I also think that this movie threatens to trip itself up with its own kind of technical complexities. And I think this is the beginning of Nolan's infatuation with kind of presenting his movies as something deeper than they actually are.
Yeah.
And I don't say that as kind of like, I don't mean to be churlish when I say that, but I mean like, a lot of what Christopher Nolan's movies is quite simple, and that's fine. You can be a simple movie if you do it well. And I think this is a great example of a heist movie. And it almost falls over because it gets into all the technicalities of the dreaming. And it doesn't really need that, but
it does.
Well, it doesn't need the technical details.
It does need the technical details because they were able to, not flawlessly. I'll talk about later a couple of moments where I think it is on the edge, and I think that it's a bit fourth wall breaking for me. But the fact that they are able, for the most part, to carry out the technical details correctly, and they're able to marry it together. I think because of that, that's why it's remembered for what it is. That's why it hit such a huge thing when it first came out, because they went for the technical details and they put them in, and it paid off. You know what I mean?
So I think, personally, I think the reason this hit there's two reasons. Spectacle, I think it is a spectacular movie in terms of action set pieces. And I don't say that often. Like, I think there's a lot of movies I've seen that have good action set pieces, but it doesn't really stun me. But watching this back, I was like, and we'll get into the details of the action set pieces once we start talking spoilers, but watching this back, I was like, wow, these are really good action set pieces. Like, they're really well shot. And then the themes that the movie brings to the forefront with its characters. And I think that was what I wanted to discuss with you was so the themes in this movie of, you know, infatuation with our past and our future, or dreams, I guess, and compromising our ability to focus on and live in our present because of that.
Yeah.
Do you think the movie has much more to say than that, or do you think that's kind of it?
Well, if you're going to boil it down to sort of a moral or a message that they're sort of going for, I think that is a good one to go with. I think that I think if you're able to boil down a film as complex as this, and as actiony as this, and as crazy as this, to a simple moral like that, I actually would think that that's a positive thing. I think films should have from day one an idea that they're trying to put across. Ironically, because this is Inception. Keep saying Interstellar. I don't know why. Don't make two films with the I. Insomnia, Inception, Interstellar. Come on, like, well, you know.
Yeah, he'd done Batman, and then he moved to I for some reason. Actually, no, this was before Interstellar, wasn't it? So Interstellar's the one that screwed up there. Really, he should just call that Space.
No, Inception is one he screwed up because Insomnia came out first.
Oh, Insomnia. Yeah, I've never seen Insomnia. I mean, I don't necessarily mean that as a criticism. It's more just that, again, it's to me, it's the the kind of presumptuous weightiness of like Christopher Nolan's writing that really gets me down, and we'll get into that maybe a bit later once we start talking spoilers. But when it doesn't actually have that much to say in terms of the themes, which is, it has this simple thing that it wants to talk about, and I think it does it really well. I don't mean this as a criticism. So okay, one thing I definitely wanted to talk about before we talk spoilers. Let's talk characters.
Yeah.
We gotta talk the gang.
You get the intro. You get the intros, like, where they're going around the world, like almost,
Yeah,
it's great.
Okay, so I would say this is not quite as stylish as like a Steven Soderbergh movie, like an Ocean's 11 or something. They're not. But the characters are certainly at least DiCaprio is far more complex a character than Danny Ocean. But I can't remember if that's his real name. Danny Ocean, is that his real name?
Let's go with it.
Yeah, and. Oh, mama, talk about having an absolutely superstar cast. Like, you look at this is a murderer's row of actors this. So you've got Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hardy, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ken Watanabe, Cillian Murphy, Tom Berenger, Elliot Page, at that point, Ellen Page, before they had transitioned, Marion Cotillard, Michael Caine, Pete Postlethwaite. Like, just... There are 4 or 5 actors in this movie who would go on to be perfectly serviceable leads in their own right. Yeah. It is unreal, the star power that this movie has.
The only negative in the star power is the fact that Heath Ledger passed away, because I think that the role of Arthur, Joseph Gordon-Levitt played, apparently there's word out that it was written for him.
Oh, really? Okay, I could have definitely seen that, because it's... I mean, and... I think that's really interesting, because I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt does a really good job as kind of like the straight man in the group, and an excellent foil to Hardy, who's a little bit more kind of like cavalier and cocky. But I would have loved to have seen what Heath Ledger did with that.
Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe it's Cobb, but he was definitely. I saw him as more of an Arthur, to be honest.
Yeah, I could see. I feel like by this point, DiCaprio was kind of like Nolan's guy. Like he loved him as a lead. Talking about Tom Hardy, I feel like it'd be remiss of us to go over his character here without mentioning this is probably him at his most Bond-like, I would say. I feel like when I was watching this movie, I was like, shit, they should have made Tom Hardy James Bond around this time, because he would have been great.
I think literally he didn't get it because he's too short. I think that's probably why they didn't give it to him. Or maybe he didn't want it. Let's be honest, because
possibly
you can't. He must have been in the conversation. Like, he must have been in the conversation. I think he does a really good job. Of course, he's the, what do they call him? The forger. Like, so they've got all the little names. He's the forger, so he can turn into the characters. I thought it was okay the way they portrayed. They didn't have enough room to properly go into how he turns into characters within dreams. So what they did was it was serviceable. I would have preferred something different, but I don't even know what I would have preferred, to be honest with you. I think they did an okay job at that. But yes, he did very well. I thought he was also one of the comic relief for the film too. So he sort of had a couple of hats.
He and Joseph Gordon-Levitt were kind of the funny pairing. And I think you are right. I think a lot of the characters are kind of just like are essentially their roles, with the exception of Cobb, who's troubled relationship with Marion Cotillard's character Mal is really like the heart of the movie, and then like Elliot Page is great as the kind of moral, clear-headed reflection of Cobb.
Of course, Ariadne. That's
Yeah, Ariadne. Yeah, as soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, I didn't know what that meant probably the first time I watched it, but I've seen Dark now. I don't know who Ariadne is. I know a metaphor when I see one. Christopher Nolan, you're not getting that past me. And Ken Watanabe doing Ken Watanabe stuff.
Let's be young men again. I thought that like the beginning of the film with Ken Watanabe as he's like a really old man, and then it cuts to the same scene, but he's a young man in the same room. I thought that sort of knowing what was going to happen to Saito before it happened, like sort of when you rewatch it, I mean, I thought he did a really, really good job. I thought he's sort of like an unsung hero of this film for me.
Yeah, he's kind of, and it's funny actually as well, because his character, if you actually take a step back and look at his character, it's completely implausible. He's like this billionaire, this energy billionaire who's like for some reason incredibly plausible at being a part of the heist, incredibly competent rather at being part of the heist. Yeah. But Ken Watanabe's performance is really what sells Saito as a character and makes it believable.
I don't know if it's believable that... This is the thing. I don't know if it's believable that he would be worried about this big company if he has enough money to buy an airline company out of nowhere.
They could buy 1 million airline companies. Though, like that's the problem. Like he can afford one.
Yeah,
but Cillian Murphy can afford all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I think that's a natural segue point for us to say, okay, we need to start talking spoilers here because we're getting into Saito's intro, and I have some things that I need to say about the intro to this movie.
Cool.
So if you haven't seen Inception, spoiler warning, we're going to start talking some more plot-specific stuff here.
Yep.
That intro is one of the best action movie intros I've ever seen. Like, it just like, here's a dream. Oh, okay, we're in another dream. Oh shit, we're in another dream. And it's just like, and you know, it gives you, it gives you like whiplash because you're trying to keep up with it and trying to keep up with like where you are and whose dream you're in, and it's so engaging as a plot device.
The 2 layers of dream, and then the 3rd layer is the real life whenever they're on the train. It really is great. Like the first time I watched it, I went to cinema to see this 4 times. I think, Konrad. It was back in those days where I was young, had no commitments, had a part-time job, had too much money for the age I was, and I was just like, I'm gonna go see films in the cinema 4 times. And so I saw this like 4 times in the cinema, and I'm just gonna say to you, the first time Saito recognizes that the carpet is made of polyester and not wool that it should be, I was like, oh my god! You know, it was a real great moment. Like,
yeah, no, I think like that, like those little moments of kind of fleshing out the way that the dream construction works. To be honest, for me, they don't add that much because I don't really need that. But I can totally understand why someone who is into that kind of like basically into a movie creating a system that actually follows its own rules and works, which I think maybe is more your speed than mine. Why this would appeal so much to you.
I will say, Konrad, like I think you're right. It didn't need it, but I'll say this: it doesn't need the technicalities and the minutia of those things to be a good film. Okay, I am a true believer that it did need those to become the sort of huge, epic, iconic film it became. Because when you have audiences going and loving the film, like you know, like a layperson audience who love the film, and they're just like a general movie-going audience, but it had so much like set pieces. Yes, they are confused as it goes, but it was an amazing action film that they also walked away from being, I need to see that again. That's what made it what it was. And I remember, like, it seems stupid now, but there was a lot of discussion at the time whether or not Cobb's still dreaming or not, because they don't show the thing falling. Whereas really that's just like a little cheap thing Christopher Nolan did to finish the film, in my opinion. But at the time there was a lot of discussion around how complex the film was. Did you understand it? Did you not understand it? And I think that's what made it what it was. That's what made people go see it a couple of times. It what made people want to get the DVD. You know what I mean? I think that really is what made it into such an iconic film.
Yeah, I think I do agree with you. I think I don't have that many criticisms of this movie. I do think it's a really, really fun movie. My criticisms of it are, and I think this does relate slightly back to my not having very much patience for Christopher Nolan when he gets on his bullshit, is the good complex stuff in this movie is almost tainted a little bit by moments like, you know, when they go to find is it the alchemist, the guy who like knows how to create like the sedative. I can't remember his his
alchemist name. I think he's called. Yeah,
they go to find him, and he's got this kind of like basement full of dreamers that he's sedated. And Tom Hardy's character kind of says incredulously, "They pay to come here and sleep." And the guy says, "No, they come here to wake up." Yeah. And it's just like, fuck you, Christopher Nolan, all right? Get that shit. It's very much kind of like a Dr. Mann and Interstellar moment. And there isn't that much of that in this, but there is a little bit, and it kind of colours my impression of maybe some of the other stuff. And it's not, that's on me.
Okay, I know it is 100% on you, Konrad, because I'm going to go on about the agenda here. So I think that, I honestly think that you are noticing that because Christopher Nolan is a good director and a good writer. Honestly, that might sound...
He's not a good writer.
No. Hang on, no. Come on, there's different types of writing. We sat here and blew fucking smoke up the arse of Fast 9. Come on, mate. Like...
No, but Fast 9 knows what kind of movie
this is my point. This is my point, right? I think that because we're going from all this technical, you know, really sort of attempt at classy filmmaking into these stupid lines. That's where I think your issue is the dichotomy of those two styles, right? Whereas if you were watching a film and it was nothing but that guy saying, they come here to be awake, if it was nothing but that, you'd fucking love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily have a problem with cheesy dialogue. It's more, I get the impression with Christopher Nolan's filmmaking that he thinks he's making more kind of like important films than he is, and that's not to say they're not good films. I think Inception is a really good movie, and I really enjoyed it. I don't think he's making like 2001: A Space Odyssey, but I think he thinks he is, which is kind of my issue with him as a writer. Now, I will say that my perception of that flaw in him as a creator isn't really all that present in this movie. That literally was the only line that made me sit up and be like, Christopher Nolan.
It did stand out.
There he is. The old Nolan comes out. Like, for the most part, I think this is a very good balance of his best qualities as a filmmaker. And I think, presentationally speaking, as good a film as he has ever made. I think it won a lot of Oscars for visuals and sound, and I think it absolutely deserves those. Like, it's stunning.
Oh yeah, and like Hans Zimmer's score, really great too. I'll say this, right? Okay. Now, I think that this might sound like a real off the wall observation, but I think this is true. When you listen to Christopher Nolan talk about movies and how he likes to make movies, and the reason he loves to do like IMAX cameras and stuff, he's all about making the cinema experience, like going to the big screen. He wants adults to feel watching a film like he felt when he was a child watching the film. And this is where my slant on it comes. I think, therefore, I really think when he makes a film, he pictures the audience as a general moving-going public in America. I think he pictures his film for an American audience, because that's when he was a kid, he was watching American films, and he's like trying to emulate that. I honestly think that he's making it for a general American audience. And I think, let's be honest, sorry to our American listeners, to the rest of the world, you do come across a bit cheesy. Like, you know what I mean? It does,
certainly blockbusters.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is a weakness. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is an excuse. That is a weakness. The way, I think who he views as his sole audience isn't always the way it pans out to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I definitely think he has a great love for the movie-going experience, and he wants his movie to be front and center of that. But I think that the story of his movies tell is less important than the experience of watching them. I think, which is not to say his stories are bad, but I think if you look at some of his later stuff, like Dunkirk, I think is quite a good example, where that is a very experiential movie. It's not really about any particular story within.
Well, everyone already knew the story before they started watching.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, it's historically based, so it's kind of you know what's going to happen. But I feel like that's really a movie that wants to kind of put you in the position of the people on the beaches of Dunkirk or in the skies above it. More so than telling a story. And actually, having said that, Inception I think is more interested in having a narrative and exploring themes on its own merits, which I think is one of the things I love about it. Okay, so I've got two things that I wanted to visit with you briefly. Okay. Before we wrap this up.
Oh, actually, I have a couple. I have things which I thought were quite like a little bit fourth wall breaky. Not fourth wall breaky, but they took me out of it after you did it.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. I'll do one, and then you do yours, and then I'll do another one, because mine are dumb. Okay. So, first one, we had I've now forgotten his name, but the Hector from Westworld.
He was Xerxes
in our last week's movie in 300.
Yeah.
Did you notice that we had another Westworld actor appear in this movie this week?
I didn't. Who was that?
It was a blink and you'll miss it appearance by, hold on, let me get the name, Tallulah Riley, who is the blonde host who greets William.
Yes, I did notice that. Yes.
And she was the blonde at the bar that Cillian Murphy was talking to when they were in Tom Berenger's dream.
Yes.
And I was immediately like, hot damn, we're 2 for 2 on Westworld.
Yeah, what are we doing here? Like,
we need to find another one.
Yeah. We'll purposely watch one.
Let's go watch The Notebook, starring James Marsden next week. Go on. Okay, so you've got a couple of fourth wall breaky things. You're far better at spotting this kind of stuff than I am, really. So what did you spot?
I say fourth wall breaky. It's actually not the right way to describe it. It is just taking me out of it because Christopher Nolan he's very ambitious with his technicalities, as we've already talked about. He's very ambitious with trying to create this system of something complicated, and sometimes he does things which take people out of it. For example, you were taken out of it in Interstellar when love conquered all. Fair enough, that's okay. I actually thought that was quite nice.
Taken out of the fucking cinema is what I was.
Yeah. Well,
I wasn't. I stayed till the end.
Yeah, I was there with you. We went and got some lovely pizza after, I do remember.
We did.
But, so basically... Also, actually, there's another one I was going to say. In Tenet as well, I've got a whole video on that. There's certain things where they just sort of, just for cool factor, they just like throw the rules of their time travel out the window, right? So that's okay. That's all right. In this, he does have a couple of moments like that. I'm just going to ask you a question, Konrad. If a kick wakes you up because the ear function is not affected by this sedative, why the fuck do they stay asleep during a car rolling over?
Yeah, a lot. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, this kind of stuff is like, you didn't need all of this. Oh no, the kick's not going to work unless we set explosives and shit like that. I will say... You
did need it. I do think you did. But it's not hard to write it consistently. That isn't consistent. Like, they would have... Come at me in the comments, guys. They would have woken up. If they wake up by fucking moving a little faster in a lift, they're going to wake up from a car rolling over.
Yeah, I think, and actually, I do take that back. I think the tension of that scene when they're like, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's planting bombs and got them all rolled up with cable and shit while like Ken Watanabe Saito's bleeding out a dream down. That is such a good action set piece that I'm like, you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. I can't criticize it. But I did also at the end think I didn't need all that technical stuff about kicks. You could have just been like, I don't know, we need an explosion to wake us up or whatever.
But that, again, Konrad, like I want Inception to be this iconic film, and I needed it. Otherwise, I think we're looking. If it didn't have all that technical crap that everyone was confused by, I really think it would be like Live, Die, Repeat. Like it would be remembered like that film, which is a good film.
Possibly.
It's a good film, but it's not an iconic film, which everyone was wondering what everything was going on.
Yeah. I will say this for Christopher Nolan. I rag on him a little bit for his kind of what I've called before in this episode like self-importance, but there is an undeniable style and quality to his writing. And sometimes the complexity falls on its arse. I think Tenet is a good example of like, what are you doing, Chris? Like, like this doesn't. I don't know where you're going with it, but I think this is the other side of the Tenet coin where it works very, very well. And even though I'm kind of like, maybe you didn't need this, I can totally appreciate that it does add something to the experience of watching. And we have briefly touched on this, but I think it'll be remiss of us not to mention it here fully. Like the very ending, with Cobb spinning his what do you call it? They're not called focuses. What do they call them? Token. That's it.
Yeah, tokens.
Totem, rather.
Totems.
Spinning his totem and then walking away with his kid. Do you interpret that any other way than it just being like, maybe, even though it's kind of clearly said he has made it back, or do you think there's more to it than that?
The only way you can legitimately say, that it is a dream still is just that the whole film was a dream. And I think that's just the question that Chris Nolan was trying to throw out there. Was the whole thing a dream? And I personally, because the whole thing would need to be a dream, and therefore before the film started he would already have to be in a dream, it's a pointless question and I don't give a fuck about it.
That was literally the response my partner has when we got to the end of the movie and it ends on the totem spinning, and she was like, "What?" And I was like, "It just makes you question it," and she just rolled her eyes. So like no time for it.
It literally is like a pointless question, because if he was in a dream the whole film, even when it started, well, I don't care if he's dreaming, because the story we watched was in the dream. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, and if the whole thing was a dream, it's like, well, what are we even doing here?
Yeah.
What was the point of this movie? So, unless Christopher Nolan deliberately wanted to invalidate his entire film, I think it's probably just a fun little thing he's thrown out.
There was a moment where he spanned the spinner, and then it fell off a sink, and he didn't actually get to. After when he's down in Mumbai, I think where they are. I'm not exactly sure. Mombasa. When they're in Mombasa, and like he goes into the dream sleep in the basement with all those other people, and then he comes out. He tries to spin his thing. It falls off the desk, so he doesn't get it properly. He never actually fully completed that spin, so therefore that could be the moment where he was in a dream from that point. Having said that, we see him spinning the thing and it's stopping after that point, so even that's bollocks. So
yeah. I mean, but it is a hallmark of Christopher Nolan movies to ask these kind of questions, even though they're kind of dumb. They're fun to discuss, and I think that's that is a hallmark of his movies. Is giving us these like water cooler conversation points. To have. The final thing that we have to mention about this movie before we call it a day is, I believe this movie was the origin of the Hans Zimmer blah, which has been in every movie trailer ever made since this came out. How should we punish Hans Zimmer for this trend?
Oh, extremely. Having said that, the Interstellar score is lovely, so we'll take it. Is we'll let him have it. I will say, actually, what's funny is that the trailer music for Inception, is just as memorable. But it wasn't done. I don't believe it was done by Hans Zimmer.
Really?
Now, this might be something I need to look up, and I'll put something on the screen if I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure it was done by that guy Ludwig someone, who's the Mandalorian's guy, and he's also Tenet's. Yep. I think he's Tenet's one as well, composer. I'm pretty sure he did the original trailer for Interstellar. He would have been very young at the time, so maybe I'm wrong, but yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. If they shared responsibilities on the score, and perhaps we should split the blame for that incredibly annoying trend between Hans Zimmer and the Mandalorian score man.
Ludwig Göransson, sorry.
That's it. Yeah, he's made some great music. Overall, then, Anthony, I mean, we've kind of gone over it, but sounds like you would recommend this movie.
I honestly would, and if someone's listening here and they haven't watched the movie, I will just ask why. I honestly don't think there's a better like blockbuster of that little sort of 3-4 year era of cinema. I honestly think this is around the time, Konrad. You have to remember, this was fucking huge. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and Nolan was pumping out bangers. As I say, it's easy to forget because he kind of maybe lost his way a little bit, or maybe he just started making stuff that had slightly less mainstream appeal. But 2010, that was peak Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
He was making good things, and he was very popular.
Also, Zach Hemsey did the Inception trailer. Sorry, I was wrong.
Okay. Well, I mean, you've corrected yourself and saved us all some hassle. That is gonna do it for us here on the Best Movie Podcast Ever, which leaves us with only one simple question to answer, as we always do, and that is, Anthony, what's your favourite movie? I'm not
even going to joke this week. It is Inception. It is.
Lovely. I unfortunately have to go with Escape from New York because I've invoked John Carpenter, and John Carpenter is my boy. Thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. You can find links to their stuff down in the link below. And thank you to you for joining us. Please consider subscribing. We are the Best Movie Podcast Ever on... Wait, hold on. We're the Best Movie Podcast Ever on everything. I don't know why I said that. We're the Culture Cave on YouTube. Yeah. And we are... I've completely fucked up this outro. We're the Best Movie Podcast Ever on podcasting apps. You know where to look for us.
Just subscribe, all right?
Just subscribe, all right? Just get involved in the comments. And we will see you same time, same place next week.
And cut.
Wow. A lovely ending.
Excellent. Absolutely fantastic.